Hey now, today I'm going to take a stab at a bacon old-fashioned sourdough. This is going to involve some bourbon, bitters, of course bacon, some maple syrup, as well as some citrus in it. First step here though is super simple. I'm making a 500 gram loaf, 500 grams worth of flour. You can use baker's flour or just all-purpose flour. And I've got filtered water here. I'm going for 75% hydration with the water, so that was 375 grams of that. And step number one is just mixing this up, getting it thoroughly incorporated here, the water and the flour, and then I'm going to give it probably an hour or two just to autolyse. So I'm going to get this mixed up, covered up with some plastic, and then let it sit until we're ready to add the leaven. All right, so our next step here is to take this leaven, which is really nice and jiggly and ready to rock. It's been doing its thing for several hours now. I'm going to be adding 25% of that based on the baker's percentage, so it's 125 grams for this particular recipe. If you want to see my instructional video on how I like to make my leaven, by all means check that out. Otherwise, it's just some filtered water on my fingers here. And I'm just going to mix this all in here for a few minutes, and then let it sit for 30 covered up, and then it'll be time to add some more stuff. All right, so I've got some of my home smoked bacon here. This is from the batch that I did with my pellet tube smoker. You can check out my video on that if you like. And it's about 175 grams. I'm going to throw it in the oven at 350 degrees Fahrenheit and just let it cook till it's nice and crispy. All right, so I actually gave it about 40 minutes here just to give that leaven a little bit more lead time on that fermentation before I start dosing it with stuff that the bacteria is going to hate. So the first thing I'm going to do here is I've got 1% fine sea salt, which is 5 grams for this particular size batch. Then I've got, this is the orange zest from one large navel orange. So I'm just going to get that all into there. I didn't bother to weigh it. It's an orange. So I'm just gonna as much of that in as I can. That's for that nice little orange garnish that you would get. Then I've got 40 grams, which is 8% of nice dark grade A maple syrup, because maple and bacon just goes together awesomely. Do that. Then onto some of this easier stuff to pour. So I've got 10 grams of citrus bitters, which works up to 2%, and this is actually bitters that I made, a sous vide bitters recipe. You can check out my video on that if you like. And then finally, fun time here. It's the bourbon. So I'm going with 75 grams or 15% of bourbon, just any bourbon that you like to use if you're mixing up an old-fashioned for yourself. In this case, I happen to use Buffalo Trace, but anyway, here we go. And I'm going to, this is where things are going to get a little bit soupy and sloppy for a little bit. So it's probably going to take me a few minutes to get this all really nicely incorporated here, and I'll let you see what it looks like when we're done. All right, so I'm not going to lie to you, that was proving to be a little bit more of a... All right, so I'm not going to lie, that was proving to be a bit more of a challenge than I first expected. So I got it, a large portion of that liquid incorporated. I'm just going to let it sit for a little bit now, and I think it'll absorb a little bit more of that, and then it'll be a little bit more receptive to receiving more. So I'm going to let it sit for 5 or 10 minutes. And here we are, some nice hot, crispy, smoky bacon. I'm going to let that cool down and then give it a little bit of a chaw. All right, so I want to giving it about half an hour here, and a bunch of that liquid's absorbed, but there's still some sitting around there. So I'm definitely perhaps reevaluating life choices. But I'm going to dump in this bacon now, because I think bacon's going to make everything better, and we will figure out whether I'm just full of crap or not. So I'm going to sit here and mix it all up. It's really quite soupy. I was running the numbers, and this kind of wound up making it right around 100% hydration if you're counting the syrup and bourbon and bitters as water. So that's part of the reason why. But it's so incredibly wet right now. Then plus the fact that it wasn't all initially mixed, that kind of obviously resulted in some difficulty with this liquid wanting to absorb right away. So anyway, oh, this is actually working not too bad. And that bacon might actually soak up some of this moisture as well. Just going to mix it for another minute or so, and we'll take a look at what it looks like when it's done. So there we are. That was about another 60 seconds or so. I'm going to give it 30 minutes, and then I will attempt to stretch and fold. All right, so like I said, it's been half an hour here, and we are going to just take a look at how this will stretch out. And, oh, not too bad, actually. Definitely quite moist, but It's doing okay. I smell a lot of citrus. I smell bourbon. It smells awesome. All right, so I'm going to cover that up, give it another half hour, and we'll take another look at it. All right, so now I'm going to do a coil fold and just kind of see what this is doing here. Yeah. Holding together not too badly. So I'm going to do a series of coil folds probably every 20 minutes. Starting now, I'm guessing probably another 3 of them or so. We'll just see kind of how it goes. All right, so this loaf has received 3 coil folds, and those were I actually wound up doing them 20 minutes apart. And now I'm going to try to get it out here and just do a little pre-shaping on this. Oh, a little bit of bacon. Let's get that in there. Can't go to waste. And oh yeah, she's a soupy mess. She's a soupy mess. All right. Wow. Yep, this is sticky. This is wet. I think this is going to be another situation where it's either going to be awesome or a disaster. I guess we'll find out. So I'm just going to flop it over here, let it sit down for a second and relax. And then I'm going to reshape in just a minute or so here and get it into a lined banneton. All right, so I'm going to try to get this a little bit more reasonable. And some rice flour on it. You can see I've got a very well floured banneton liner there. And now it's time to cover up and get it in the fridge overnight. It smells amazing. Fingers are crossed for the final product. All right, so it's the morning of the bake here. I've got my oven preheated to 500 degrees with the cast iron in it, and we are going to just cross our fingers and hope that this works out really well. So, let's go to flip here. Oh yeah, the liner was definitely a solid play. I'm just going to do a really, really simple scoring pattern on this one here because I don't want to take too long with it out. It is starting to ooze already. Plunk it onto here. I'm going to cover it up, and then I'm going to give it 30 minutes at 440 degrees Fahrenheit, and then we will uncover. Right, so it's been half an hour. I'm just going to pop this off here, and then I'm going to give it another 20 minutes at 440. All right, so it has been 20 minutes at 440. This is looking and smelling beautiful, very orangey. We're going to let it cool down, and I cannot wait to slice into it. All right, it is moment of truth time. I'm just going to slice right into the middle of this. Oh, it slices really easily. All right, so you can see like it is a fairly dense loaf, and I knew that was going to be the case just based on how it was rising the other day. However, you can see the nice chunks of bacon, all that orange zest in there. And I'm going to cut off a little slice because this deserves a little taste test. They always make fun of me when I'm sitting here tasting these. All right, so we got a nice nub of bacon in there. It's beautiful, it's salty, it's a little smoky. Lots of that citrus is coming through, both from the bitters as well as from that orange zest. I'm getting a little hint of the bourbon in there too, which is nice. Not too terribly much, but just enough. And just the barest hint of maple. I think next time I'd probably try to go up a little bit on the maple. So this definitely deserves a little bit more playing around to see. But yeah, pretty cool experiment. Tastes awesome. And I'm going to toast this thing up and kick back with a little old fashioned. So yeah, till next time, keep her at 11.